And if I may call Jane to make the presentation for people who not only forgave, but then turned it around and began teaching.
Good evening. It is such an honor to be here tonight with us. I look out and I honestly don't remember who some of my friends were before I joined Worldwide Forgiveness. It's an honor for me to give this presentation today. It's an honor for me to be here with all of you and to feel the absolute, unparalleled love and forgiveness here with all of us this evening. Molly. I present this to you, and thank you for all that you've done. Thank you so much.
Good evening, and thank you everyone for having me this evening. And Jacinta, I feel as if I've made a new friend wherever you are. It's been really nice speaking with you in the days preceding this evening. Mr. Heyer, I have to tell you, when your daughter was killed, my family spoke of you. There are a lot of parallels with your daughter and with my sister, and to be thrust in the limelight, to be thrust in front of news reporters and cameras, it is not easy. And I always have this thing about the media and our experience. This happened in 1993. And I hate it, and I'm so very grateful for it. Because in a moment when you're lost and overwhelmed and just missing the person that is your sister or your daughter, to have to make a stand, to take a stand, and to reflect on the legacy that is your loved one and to honor them, to say you forgive in that moment and to feel in your heart, it's so authentic and it's so confusing at once, and then the journey that is to follow is amazing. You find yourself in places you can't even imagine, and you wonder, what am I doing here? My sister loved the people of South Africa. She was passionate about what she was doing. She died doing what she loved. Why am I here as a hero of forgiveness? It's a very strange feeling. It's a very privileged platform. I wish you the best in this journey that you have. And I thank you so much for saying what you said in the authentic way that you said it and from your heart. And I would just like to say I stand here as a legacy of forgiveness. My parents were my example. And 3 days before Amy was murdered, I went to my first funeral, and it was a sibling of my coworker who had been killed in an automobile accident. And I remember driving home thinking, what if that was my sister? I had 3 other siblings. Amy and I were closest. And I just thought, oh my gosh, I don't know what I would do. And then I'm sitting in my office covering for my friend who is out because her brother has been killed, and I get the call from the State Department. And in the months to follow, my friend in her home was not allowed to speak her brother's name, nor were they allowed to discuss what had happened. It was too painful. What my parents did when I flew home from Washington, D.C. to be with my family was they said, we're going to celebrate Amy's life. And in doing that, we're going to honor her legacy. And in the moments following the phone call, I had to actually find my dad. He was in a business meeting in Oregon, and I had to deliver the news to him. And we talked very briefly, and I said, "Dad, man, Amy was my hero." And he goes, "You know, she was mine too." And in the years to follow, and I accept this award on behalf of my father and my mother, in the years to follow, never have I seen such heroism as in my dad, watching him and the pain that he was going through and the struggle that he was trying to protect us in our journeys to South Africa and trying to be a father to a high school age son who was a football player and just trying to be a kid and parent my sister and I. And it was his grace and his authenticity and his willingness to open his heart to these men who ultimately became employees of the Amy Biehl Foundation in South Africa, 2 of them. And to see that they would eventually reconcile and be attending dinners and theaters and whatnot. Now, reconciliation, as we know, is not part of forgiveness. It is not necessary. And in my journey, I've learned a lot about forgiveness, and I've learned a lot about what it's not. But in my family's instance, it was appropriate and fitting that happened. And so I can tell you that about, I think it was 2 years ago, my son Will over here, and my other son who's now at UCSD, and my daughter and my mother, we went to Disneyland with one of the men responsible for Amy's death. So forgiveness is the biggest gift that you can give people. And I love that I'm a legacy of forgiveness. And I love that I can be that example for my children. And when all the limelight goes away and all the headlines go away and you're just there, not in public, you don't get to brag about your sister. You don't get to, think, wow, my parents are so phenomenal. My mom, who is 74 years old, who wishes she could be here this evening, but she's currently in New Mexico. She just spoke on the mall in Washington, D.C. on civility. And so when all that stuff and all that stuff goes away, sometimes you find yourself alone and bummed out. Forgiveness is a daily endeavor. And so that's kind of where I've taken up in the forgiveness realm, as we would say. And that is, I have taken those lessons that I learned from my parents and through my journey and through meeting one of the gentlemen responsible for my sister's death. And I realized in times of daily life, specifically having gone through a divorce recently, and wanting to feel happy again and wanting to thrive again and to feel alive again, it was forgiveness. I was able to take what I had learned, and I didn't even know what I did. So I go back, and I had to people would say to me, "How are you doing this?" Like this evening. I don't know. It was in my heart. It was in my example. But this time around, I had to figure it out. So I read and I researched and I realized this is for everybody, and it's for many, many things. And so my journey starts now in writing a book, hopefully writing many more, and really sharing with everyone the value and the meaning of forgiveness in a daily life. It's applicable to all of us in many situations. And I'm going to end just with saying perhaps one of the more applicable areas that forgiveness has been in my life and served me extraordinarily well is in forgiving myself. You go through these things and you realize, I can't be my sister, I'm not a Fulbright scholar. I wasn't in South Africa. I can't be my parents. I can't be my dad and his eloquence and grace and ability to just make everything feel okay for everyone. I can't be my mom and her regular phone calls to the men who killed Amy and nurturing of their children and listening to them call her grandmother and seeing that love that she has. That's her lane, you know? So, but this is my lane. This is me saying, what can I extract from the extraordinary situation and what can I impart in a very ordinary one? And so I hope to help a lot of people help themselves with just being open to the possibility of forgiveness in their lives. So thank you so much for listening. And thank you. Oh, all of these. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Molly. Wow. Our next presentation is one for a friend who's actually more than a friend. Such an integral part of the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance and all that we've been doing for the last 21 years. We had scheduled with Ed to give him this award, and then he decided it was time to leave. So I'm going to ask Rob to make the presentation to Ed's daughter. Ed Dudkowski was a man who stood out among many, a family man, a friend, an inventor, a videographer, a producer, director, editor, and narrator, and also a very, very important and integral member of the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance team. He was the driving force behind the video images of every Forgiveness Day event since the very first International Forgiveness Day event in 1996. He organized the crews and the equipment. He directed every aspect of the video production. Then he took over the editing, and as for the narration, that was Ed's voice all the way. But Ed went even further because he took the extra steps to make sure that our video events were broadcast on television. The outstanding work of Ed Dudkowski went a long, long way to making the work of the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance visible and spreading the healing energy of forgiveness around the world. Ed Dudkowski, he is truly a champion of forgiveness. Of forgiveness.
We thought we'd bring up people who have worked with Ed over the years to honor Ed as a real champion. You know, some people are champions because they're very much out there in the world, like Bob Plath was. He was magnanimous in reaching out to everybody. People like Marianne Williamson and John Lewis and so on, who are international in how they talk about forgiveness. And then there's some people who are very subtle, like Ed, behind the scenes, doing all the camera work for years and years and years. So we really would like to honor Ed in this moment. And I guess his daughter is not here to receive the award. So we will receive it on his behalf. And does anybody else have anything to say about what your experience with Ed was?
I'm Will Chang, and I started working with the Forgiveness Alliance in 1998. So I'd seen the man behind the camera for all those years. And, you know, thinking back about what he had actually accomplished for us, when we look back at the 21 years, there's tremendous history of what we've accomplished. And Ed was the one who put it all together and edited it and made it presentable so that we can all see it every time we ask him for a 10-year update, a 15-year update, and a 20-year update. But it's remarkable that his work that is unseen in the sense that we don't know who the man behind the camera necessarily is, but we love him so very much, and he's such an incredible wealth of the history that we've all gone through together. So thank you, Ed.
Hi, I'm Frank Lang. I've known Ed for 20 years. Over those 20 years, I've been witness to the many great works that Ed has done, including many of these events here. I think what I could say here that would probably be the most meaningful thing would be a little bit about his passing. I spent 4 hours with him on Monday this last week, taking him to his last radiation treatment. He had cancer, brain cancer, and he was navigating and still wanting to go the next day. And when I called him on Tuesday to see if he had a ride, he said, "Frank, I'm checking out." And I said, "Okay, fine, I'll be right over." So I went and I spent the next 4 hours with him. And I watched him go from the previous day. Ed really wanted to live. I watched him struggle with this cancer. And I watched him very deliberately and very quietly and very courageously let go. And his passing was so calm and so deliberate, and there was no trauma and there was no regret. It was just simple, straightforward. And I was there when the prayers were being said over his body by his minister, and I remember thinking, I'm witness to a great soul going to a fuller expression. And that's the feeling that I have for Ed, and that's what I want to leave you with.
I also had an opportunity to know Ed well for 20 years or maybe more. And Ed was brilliant, competent, and such a professional. And the one thing I told him, I knew he was ill and we would speak often, and I had been his practitioner off and on during his life. And I was praying with him and I said, "Ed, the one thing I remember most about you." He said, "What's that?" And I said, "We had this huge event at Dominican. I mean, it was packed, it was spectacular, and he was trying to get the film correct, and he's such a talent." And so he kept saying, "No, your other left. No, your other left." And finally the men got it and put the camera in the right place, and he was sitting there. And every once in a while he would say, "Your other left." So my sweet memory of Ed was, "Your other left." Thank you very much.
My experience with Ed was not as extensive as everyone else's. It was always in a working environment, whether we were working alone at his place doing any editing or at the events when he was setting up. But what always amazed me about Ed was he was an inventor, and he had invented this control room in a suitcase. That is, all the stuff you see that goes on in a television studio, he had figured out how to compress it and put it in a suitcase so that he could go around and do a professional level production remotely without a lot of electricity or any of that. And I was so amazed at this. But for Ed, it was just a matter of course. It's what's the way it's supposed to be. And when he invented this teleprompter that you could put on top of a small camera so that people could read their script just like they do in the big studio with the big teleprompter. Again, it was just a matter of course because that was the way it was supposed to be. And so that's what I always felt about Ed was he did it because that was the way it's supposed to be. And he wouldn't accept anything less.
I'm Kim Chu. When I think of Ed, I think of the time when I, as a little boy, would go into a motion picture theater, and because I knew the projectionists, both in Larkspur and in the city, I would be up in the projection room learning how to put the carbon sticks into the projector. And it was the type of thing that I could talk to with Ed, and because of his ability, just listen like even though I was older than he was, I could still listen like a child to listen to what he had to tell me about the creations that he did around the camera and creating what he did.
Well, I have Ed to thank for being in Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance. It was Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance doing Forgiveness Day at St. Mary's, and they needed someone to live cut, and I went there, and that's where I met Ed. And that's where I was introduced to the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance, and I've been here ever since. One of the things that has happened, I knew Ed was sick, so I called him a couple of weeks ago, and I said, Ed, would you be okay with accepting a Champion of Forgiveness award? And he said, yeah, I'd like that. Actually, yeah. And I was thrilled because he's always been behind the camera. And it was like, yeah. And I heard from his family that he was proud of that. And I was so proud of just knowing that he would accept the award. Because yet again, championing forgiveness. He has done it for 21 years. Lugging big camera bags, setting up cameras, shouting down at people on headphones. He picked up all the stuff himself. He'd drive it to the place. He then organized all the cameramen. 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, he'd be on to me saying, get me some platforms. He was just really so involved. So many hours, so much time. And then editing and spending time. And he and I'd sit and edit some of the promos like you saw tonight. And it was like, because any of you who knew Ed knew he could be quite a grumph. And yeah, he was like just on the grumph. This beautiful machine he designed, this Pix box. We were doing a shoot one time and he was using it. And in the middle of it all, this, thousands of dollars worth of stuff, he starts hitting it. And I was like, stop. But he was, no, it won't do what it was meant to do. And so that was Ed. And I will miss him because he was always there for me. I'd send him stuff. He'd say, this isn't good enough. Do better. And we would do better. And so I'm going to seriously miss Ed. And I'm totally amazed because we do now have an archive of Forgiveness Day because of Ed Dukowski. Thank you, Ed.
How about a little lightness? I heard earlier today when I came in some beautiful music, a lovely voice. And it was like, who is that? And they told me, that is Momo. And so, wow, I think the whole group should be honored with that wonderful voice. And they said, well, she's on the program. Why don't you introduce her? So allow me to introduce Momo.
I'm going to dedicate this beautiful song written by Mr. Anthony Newley, to all the recipients of the Forgiveness Awards this evening. I honor you, and it's a privilege to be in your presence. Bird flying high, you know how I feel. Sun in the sky, you know how I feel. Breeze drifting on by, well, that's how I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling healed. Fish in the sea, you know how I feel. River running free, you know how I feel. Oh, blossom on a tree, that's the way I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling healed. Dragonfly out in the sun, you know what I mean. Butterflies having fun, you know what I mean. Sleep in peace when the day is done, well, that's what I mean. And this old world is a new world, and a full world for me. Stars, when you shine, you know how I feel. Scent of the pine, you know how I feel. Oh, freedom is mine, that's the way I feel. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life. It's a new dawn, it's a new day, it's a new life for me. And I'm feeling so good. Yeah, I'm feeling healed.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you. Just a quick aside. Here we are in the church. What do we always do in the church? We pass the basket. But why do we pass the basket?
Well, we pass the basket so that people can show their appreciation for what they're getting, can show that they want to support what they're being given. So we're going to pass the basket. Why do you think we pass the basket?
We are passing the basket so that we can pay for the work that is necessary to keep this idea of forgiveness moving forward. It is not organic, I'm afraid. I mean, even though it's all within us, what we've got to do is we've got to keep hammering at the reasons for it. We've got to keep hammering at the misconceptions about forgiveness, because so many people believe forgiveness is weakness and forgiveness is condoning the acts of the other people, which it is neither. So we've got to keep working to move that forward, to move it to a higher level until forgiveness becomes a standard way of operating, because this world will not survive if we don't learn to forgive. As Desmond Tutu says, without forgiveness, there is no future. And so, as we continue our work, we need help, financial, in doing that, which is why we're passing the basket. And we thank you very much for your assistance.
Thank you, and it all goes to very good causes. I'll let you know. We're lucky to have our heroes and champions here today and supporting just our day-to-day licensing, computers, website. It all goes to a very good cause, and hopefully getting our trainings all up and going and supporting people like Angie when she goes out. Thank you. So, could I have some members of the Worldwide Forgiveness up here on stage? We are having to say sayonara, well, it's actually arrivederci, we're not saying goodbye, to Reverend Andrew Bozeman. And this is particularly hard for me because Andrew is our spiritual center. He is our grounded spiritual person, the best prayers. Andrew is the best prayers. He is my co-conspirator. He is the person I call whenever I have an idea, and he doesn't go, we can't do that. He always say, maybe we could do that. How do you see that happening? So I'm going to miss Andrew nearly more than anyone else. The other reason is Andrew will put his heart and his energy into anything for forgiveness. He is the one who edited all of the pieces you've seen tonight so far. And this is new to Andrew. He only learned how to download footage from YouTube this week. So talk about a man of many skills. He just goes into it heart and soul. And now, the voice you heard on all the videos this week is Andrew Bozeman. So, hey, what am I going to do without the guy? Luckily, he's moving to New York. Well, not New York, Copenhagen. It's in the state of New York, I think. And he's a phone call away. But for me, he is a champion of forgiveness. For the last 10 years, he has carried the spiritual weight of the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance. He has also been our MC. He is calm under pressure and all-round amazing guy. I love him, and I'm going to miss him, but he's just going to be on the end of a phone, I hope. He's also going to be working. He's one of the people here who actually do have forgiveness processes that they teach, and so he's going to be working on YouTubes, so we'll be able to at least see him, even if not in his actual presence, which is awesome. Thank you so much, Andrew, and you are a champion of forgiveness, and I think some of my friends want to say so too.
Andrew's been a friend and a compatriot in this forgiveness for a long time. And I'll miss his deep, wonderful voice in our videos and also on our stage as the MC.
Thank you. Wow. You know, I've been with this group since 2006, but I actually met Bob in 2002. We were working together in Bayview Hunters Point on a violence prevention conference because I had a nonprofit out in Bayview Hunters Point. And Bob insisted that I should become part of the Worldwide Forgiveness Alliance because he said, you'll fit right in and we could use your talents. And I said, well, I don't have time and I'm really not interested, so no thank you. But he never gave up. Bob was persistent, a persistent pest. And he kept at me for 2-3 years before I finally even decided to come and see an event, and he saw me in the audience and he knew he had me hooked. And so there I was in 2006, a part of the organization. I've been here ever since. Well, mostly ever since. We had our disagreements quite often, and I actually quit a couple of times and went away, except they needed a press release written or they needed something done, and Bob came knocking at the door and saying, I need you to do this. And you can't refuse because it's for the good of forgiveness. Got me again. So, for the purpose of forgiveness, it is a mission. It is something that gets into you and you can't let it go because it is such a powerful thing. It is such a powerful healing energy, forgiveness is. And to let the world continue to be ignorant of its power is just unforgivable. It's something that I cannot live with. Over the years, I've developed a thing I call functional forgiveness, which basically is learning to forgive yourself, because I've learned over the years, and working with Fred Luskin, who also started working on forgiveness in 1996 at Stanford University, unforgiveness, resentment, anger, they are so destructive. They are so destructive to the human body, to the human heart. We're not meant to live that way. And so only through forgiveness and love and letting go, releasing, can we do it. But then I found in my continued work, which became functional forgiveness, is that self-forgiveness is the key. Because I found that with self-forgiveness, so many of us don't have it. So many of us beat ourselves up and abuse ourselves. You know, I tell people that if there were a law against abusing yourself, we would all be in jail. So self-forgiveness releases, because all those things in the past that you're still holding against yourself, you've got to release it. They lock up so much energy back there. They're like little ropes, hooks pulling at you as you try and move forward to do things that are important, but you can't because you're distracted by all the stuff back there. You can't because you've lost confidence because of something you did in the past. You can't because you're disempowered, because you don't have all your energy here. Half of it is still back there. So functional forgiveness is what I'll be working on when I move to New York. Being stranded in the snow, I'm looking forward to that, because I have 2 books that I need to get written so that we can get out here. And my niece has 2 teenage sons, and when I went out to visit them the first time, because we're building a family compound, they delightfully took me down into the basement to show me this room, because they're building a YouTube studio. And I said, whoa, just what I need. So there we are. Thank you. I must admit, when Jacinta told me she wanted to give me a Champion of Forgiveness award, I refused. There it is, history repeating itself. I said no, she said yes. She says, well, I'm going to give it to you anyway, so you might as well accept it. So thank you, Jacinta. Thank you all. All right. And we have one more award, folks. We have this one I've been looking forward to. This man has been a part of our lives, whether we realize it or not, for years, many years, because he's a musician, he's a singer, and his work has been there. And the joy, that is the joy of music. The joy of music, it is so powerful, it is so influential, it is so touching of the heart, our being, our very essence. But this one, this time, Lester is here not because he's a musician, but because he had to face that thing that requires forgiveness. The video, please. Lester Chambers, lead singer of the Chambers Brothers, has been performing in front of welcoming crowds for over 50 years. But on July 13, 2013, he faced a different reaction.
A legendary Bay Area musician is assaulted on stage in Hayward after dedicating a song to Trayvon Martin. You can see the attack happen right here. Check it out. Lester Chambers was performing this weekend when a woman climbed up on stage. You see her right there. She's walking up. She kind of sits up there, and then she stands up and pushes the 73-year-old singer. Watch it right there. Pushes him over. We'll slow it down. Here it is in slow motion. You can see the attack. Members of the band then helped restrain the woman until police arrived. You see the scuffle going on right there. Police eventually arrested the woman, 43-year-old Dinalyn Andrews Potter. She apparently yelled, "It's all your fault," and then used two hands to shove Chambers to the ground. Chambers' family says the attack was racially motivated, and it's urging police to file hate crime charges. Chambers was eventually taken to a hospital. You see him being wheeled in there, gives the peace sign. He was treated, released, said to be sore, walking with a cane.
At her trial, it was revealed that his attacker was a former soldier suffering from PTSD, and she was placed in a facility for treatment of her mental health problems. After her trial, Lester said of his attacker, "It makes me feel real good that she's getting treatment as opposed to just sitting in a cage." He later added, "Anyway, all I got is love, and I ain't gonna let nobody ever deter me from keeping on loving. That's all I can do. That's all I got." Please welcome Lester Chambers. Lester, it's my pleasure to award you the Hero of Forgiveness Award for showing love instead of hate.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. I would like to thank all of you that are here, that have heard all of these other people with the same problem or the reason to forgive you or someone else. My brothers and I, the Chambers brothers, had traveled around the world extensively for many years, over 50 to be exact, and never once had I or them encountered any kind of violence, any kind of hatred, because music is love. Music is from God. God gives us this talent. The Chambers brothers were fortunately blessed to be brothers with great forces and great meaning to make sure people knew that the world always needs love, peace, and happiness. But on this day that was given, I have a bad memory with dates, even though he just said the date. Because of traveling every day, we traveled thousands of miles. Every night we slept in different hotels. And every morning we went to eat, went to work, and traveled again. I had no idea that on this day this would happen to me. And it was It was, I was giving props to a man that had been murdered foolishly, and from a man that had murdered him foolishly. And I was asking forgiveness then on stage, and I had prayed. I had just finished praying and asking the entire world to forgive the man that had assaulted Trayvon Martin, at which time I saw a woman break through the very, very rear part of the concert, and she just kept coming. And she just kept coming. And I looked around as to say, where is security? And security was in the back of the stage. She climbed 6 feet up to the top of the stage, at which point she disappeared in front of me because she was down there and I'm up here. And being pretty tall as I am, I wasn't looking down. And the next thing I saw was this, you started this so and so, boom. And on that day, I got married to misery, pain, aggravation, nerve conditions, and anything else you can imagine. Sometimes I can't even eat. But I'm blessed. I am so blessed. I am such a blessed man, as we all are. But and most of us forget that we are on a daily basis. But when something like this happens to you, it's not a once in a while. You have to remember this. I am in pain 24/7. I'm shaking 24/7. I'm losing vision in this eye. And on December the 17th, 3 years ago, I had a severe stroke and a severe heart attack. I was unconscious for 4 days in the hospital. And I got out of the hospital, I looked at my son, I said, dude, how long was I gone? He says, you were gone 4 days, Dad. I says, wow, I thought it was a half a day. He says, no, you've been out of here 4 days. And I was so happy to be home. And my son takes such great care of me. He's not here with me today. He had to go to work. But I learned after all of these years and all those things, I had done so many things that I had asked people to forgive me for. And I knew I had to forgive to keep going. And I did. And I made sure that everybody knew that I forgive this woman, as they said on the camera. I don't want nobody sitting in a cage because they had a bad day or whatever. Now, today, I'm afraid to go to the supermarket because everybody looked like that woman coming at me again. And my nightmares are every night, every single night now. And I have dreams now and nightmares that my brothers are being hurt, but we never were. But it's just the way it is, because in my dreams and my nightmares, I'm always on stage. And I'm very tired all the time because I work every night on stage in my dream. I'm at work and I mean, when I wake up, the bed's toe up, and I'm in pain and I can't walk. And anyway, I'd like to forgive that woman again, because I learned that I had to forgive myself before God would come in this body, in my mind. And I forgive the world over and over, and everybody in the world needs forgiving and loving. And I have prepared not prepared. I sing them all the time. 3 songs that I want to share with you. Number 1 will be Every Day I Have the Blues. Because, like I said, this is not it's not like a once in a while you have to remember this to forget it. It's 24/7, 60 seconds of every hour. I'm in misery. But I have a smile now. That's real because I forgave. And to forgive is one thing, and to forget that you have to forgive is another. And to forget is harder than it is to forgive, because the reason you're forgiving is with you 24/7 again. So you're just constantly going around going, I forgive you, I love you, hello everybody, goodbye everybody. But, I haven't had a job since that. And the law firm that represent me, I had asked if they would help me out with my bills and stuff. They said no. So I went home and thought about all this, and under no circumstances am I going to be able to survive without any kind of income, and my Social Security and stuff of that nature is so small that it doesn't hardly make a dent in what it is. But God has given me all I need is love. And I give you love. I give you all the love you could ever have, and more if I had it. I'd like to thank you for this award and for the opportunity to stand here and tell you that I love you. And if nobody else forgives you, I do. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And you want to sing now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so very much.
And so now Lester would like to share with us his gift.
To everybody, because we all have the blues. The blues is something that we need to keep us intact with ourselves, with our minds. And you might think of, I don't have the blues, but when you feel that there's something that worries you enough, that it worries you, that's the blues. But if you don't hinder it, stop it, it will grow. And this is my friend, Ethan Bixby. His mother was one of the world's greatest folk singers that we might remember her name, Rita Wild. And this is my friend's son. I met her when she was 17. He wasn't even in the picture then. But all those years later, here comes a great, beautiful man with a guitar that accompanies me on stage. Ethan Bixby. Every day I have the blues. 1, 2, you know what to do. Every day I have the blues. Every day I have the blues. When you see me worrying, oh, it's you I hate to lose. Nobody loves me and nobody cares. Nobody loves me and nobody cares. Talk about hard luck and trouble. Oh, I've had my share. So I play the blues for ya. I'm gonna move down the line. Yes, I'll pack up my bags. I'm gonna move on down the line. You see, ain't nobody crying. Oh, and there ain't nobody caring. I say, every day, every day. Every day I have the blues. Talk about hard luck and trouble. Oh, I paid some dues, all right. Realizing I was going to have the blues every day, I kind of got tore up. I started thinking, man, I'm tore up. I can't go nowhere. I can't work. You know, nobody will hire me now. I can't get a gig, which is a concert, basically, because I can't do a show. I'm only good at 3 songs. And somebody have to help me there. So I came up with this other song that kind of fits the bill a little bit. It's called Tore Up Over You. She told me but I'm not singing this song because I don't forgive her. I did forgive her. God knows I did. I forgave myself. And God forgave me. But these are just songs that I sing Torah. 1, 2, 3, 4. song that was written by Curtis Mayfield. This is the song I was doing when I was assaulted. People, get ready. There's a train a-coming, and we need to call it a change, because we need a change. I'd like to ask for blessings for all of the people in Puerto Rico, Florida, Texas, you name it, Africa, everywhere, China, that we need help. I ask God, in the name of Lord Jesus Christ, please help us now. People, get ready. Written by the late, great Curtis Mayfield. Within us. God is in our hearts. God is in our bodies. God comes from us. He made us just like Him. And we don't know that to be no different because we've never seen God. We only know Him as somebody we imagine that's there to help us, to bless us, to save us, to give us faith and strength and unity and love. And most of all, He's very forgiving. He's always forgiving us. Regardless to where you are, what you do, all you do is say, God, please forgive me. How many times do we say that? And we always say, the minute something go wrong, what's the first thing we say? Oh God. Well, God is so close to you till He's within you. And all you got to do is open up your mind, or heart, and allow God to be a part of what you deliver to the world, to the people, to the... I could talk all week, but then I'd really be in trouble. There's a train a-coming. You don't need no baggage, you just get on board. And all you need is faith, and you can hear the diesels coming. You don't need no ticket. You just thank the Lord. Thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Lester. Thank you. God bless you all. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much. God bless you.
Thank you, thank you. It's been a wonderful evening.
It has been a remarkable evening. I think there is somebody who is maybe looking down on us right now who's saying, hey, that was my favorite one yet. Bob Plath would be proud of us all for this evening. And yes, Bob Plath.
So thank you very much to Molly and to Lester and to Mark. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and for being the remarkable people that you are. Thank you.
I want to thank our technical crew. Thank you so much, Dan Drayson. Thank you, Ed Ellsworth. Without you, it wouldn't have looked any good and you wouldn't have heard us. I also want to thank Christy Michaels, Angie Lang, and the full complement.